Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Well, a few days ago we happened to have a live chat and you viewers came up with some really great questions, and I wanted to address a couple of them in a separate video, which is this one right here. One question happened to do with the role of gunsmiths, the trade of a gunsmith in today's society. And that question was like, how do I see it now? And then how do I see it in the future? Another one that kind of dovetailed into it had to do with manufacturing and the fact that it looks like we have rolled into a bit of a throwaway, a disposable type of society. And that brings up a lot of questions, and I just thought I'd go ahead and talk about it because those are great questions, so thank you very much. First and foremost, the question about gunsmiths and their role. Sadly, to be honest with you, I think the role and the trade and the vocation of a gunsmith is on a downhill slide. And the reason for that is it used to be around my area where I live. Every small town had at least one gun shop. And in that gun shop, you had somebody that was extremely skilled by and large. They knew how to work with wood, how to work with metal. They knew reloading. So many skills brought to bear. And a lot of these guys, they came out of World War II and the Korean War. And I tell you what, folks, people from that generation, very handy with tools, very well skilled in the trades. And that's where we got a lot of very fine gunsmiths was out of World War II. Well, not only did you have that person in the gun shop, but if they were large enough, you also had people that specialized strictly in wood, in making stocks, just doing custom stocks, doing hand checkering of stocks, stock finishing and restoration. Then you had fellows that also worked in metal. They would work new actions, they would do welding, they would do conversions, they would do machining, they would even do rebluing and reboring of some barrels. So a large amount of skill sets. Sadly though, today I see less and less of those people every year. As the population ages and unfortunately gunsmiths pass away, I don't see ranks of new gunsmiths coming up with the same amount of zeal, the same amount of skill. And I think part of that is driven by the market, which goes into the other question that the guys had about a throwaway and a disposable society. So let me digress just a little bit. Back when I bought my first service revolver when I joined the sheriff's department, I remember one that I purchased that was a used Colt Snubby. It was a Colt Detective Special. Cost me $400. You know, this is around 1980. $400. And then my Smith & Wesson Model 19 that I carried, which was a revolver in .357 Magnum, I believe that cost right around $600. This is in, think 1980 money. What can you buy today for $600? Well, you can get a perfectly fine Beretta 92 FS. This is a duty weapon. This is basically a duty type weapon. So actually, when you count in inflation, this is cheaper than the Smith & Wesson Model 19 that I had back then. And there are other guns out there that we know that we can get for a whole lot less money. And there has been some simplification coming in to manufacturing. Specifically, let's talk about a Glock, for example. What does a Glock have? Maybe 33 parts, something like that. And you can tear that thing down without any real specialized tools, taking it all the way down to nothing. Strip everything out of that. Doesn't take a whole lot of specialized knowledge to do that, and there's all kinds of videos out there about how to do it. And so a lot of people do their own type of what we call kitchen gunsmithing. Now, having worked in gun shops before, I can tell you and attest to the fact that you would quite often see what we would call a gun in a bag come in. And that's where somebody had taken apart a firearm, couldn't figure out how to put it back together and get it to work right. And so they would come in with a little bag that was full of gun parts and want us to put it back together. And when it came especially to, like, the Ruger Mark IIs and Ruger Mark IIIs, I loved seeing those things come in because I'd be the guy that put them together. So that was great. But has there been a shift like that? Yes, there has. And we also have the fact that there are a lack of people getting into the trades today. But before I even attack trades, as an example, I want to talk about the Disposable Society. For the viewer that talked about us moving into a disposable society, yes, absolutely. A throwaway society, yes, absolutely. Let me use a telephone as an example. It used to be, when I was a kid growing up, the telephone that we had in our house was actually leased from Bell Telephone. So the phone company actually provided the phone. You couldn't really go out and buy one. You had to lease it from the phone company. So you paid a monthly fee for that. Well, the phone company had a vested interest in never wanting to send a telephone repairman to your house. They wanted to make profit off of leasing you that telephone along with the service for the telephone. So the telephones were built practically bulletproof. Everything in them, more or less, was made out of metal. The shell was made out of metal, the handset was made out of metal, and everything was industrial strength, industrial quality. Look at the really old payphones from back in the movies, like in the 1950s and the 1960s. Those things could really take a beating and not break. So they were built to a high standard of quality. And then when the Bell telephone system was broken up into the baby bells, then suddenly we saw telephones being made out of plastic and being made as cheaply as possible. Well, gee whiz, you drop them on the floor, they break. So that is one good example I can think of how you can see quality shifting in things of that nature. By the same token, I remember that the phone bill would generally run about $7 a month, and we thought that that was expensive. Never in our wildest dreams would we think that we might be paying, say, anywhere from $70 to $120 per month for, say, cell phone service, and then we would have to buy this little gizmo called a cell phone that could cost up to $1,200 to $1,500 that you would have to replace at some point because there's a little bit of built-in obsolescence to it. The electronics will fail, the battery will last for only so many charging cycles. If you would have told us that back in the day, we would have said that you were crazy. So big changes in society and the ways that we tend to have money leave our pocketbooks. So anyway, have we moved into a disposable type of society? Yes. But on the other hand, I think that there's also opportunities for people to start small businesses. And that's where I'm going to segue back into discussing about gunsmiths. Even though I see gunsmiths as a trade going down, the key thing there is trade. The key thing there is a skill. Now, one big lie that has been purported, in my opinion, upon society today is that a person absolutely, positively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, must go to college and must rack up a whole bunch of student loan debt in order to get a job and earn money. Well, I know people that owe a considerable amount of money in student loans, and they're working in a call center. You know what? You didn't have to pay tens of thousands or $100,000 to get a job to work in a call center and answer phones and just sit there on the computer and take orders or whatever else it is that you do. So that is a lie that is foisted upon society today, because a lot of times it is people look down at folks that know a trade. And so trades are something that are not really promoted today. But let me tell you one thing. You can get an extreme amount of pleasure and great self-satisfaction working with these. Working with your hands, creating something, making something, fixing something. Now, I have a friend of mine that one thing that he loves, flashlights. He loves flashlights. So what does he do? He makes his own flashlights. He purchases high quality glass. He experiments with different types of LEDs. He turns everything himself. He makes great flashlights. It wouldn't surprise me at all if someday his flashlights could potentially be on the shelf for you and I to buy because they are awesome. I've seen him light a cigarette with his flashlight, which we nicknamed the fire starter. But that's just one thing. Whatever you do, please, young men out there, and I'm speaking to young men right now, please learn some kind of a skill. Learn some kind of a trade, whether the economy is up, whether the economy is down. There will always be a need for people that know how to fix things. There's always going to be a need for plumbers. There's always going to be a need for electricians. There's going to be a need for people that can work on heating, air conditioning, cooling, that sort of thing. And there's always going to be a need for car mechanics. But learn some kind of a trade. It's actually pretty honorable to learn a trade. Now, when I was growing up as a kid, that was just a given that we would learn a trade. Besides the fact of working on a farm and stuff like that, one of the first jobs I ever had one summer was working as a welder in a factory. Welding is a trade. And you can be a welder today and basically travel anywhere across this country and land a job because there is a high demand for welders. You know, it's not for everybody. There's a lot of trades that aren't for everybody, but the more skills that you pick up in your life, the better off you are. And you never know when those skills are going to come together and you're going to be able to do something awesome with them. You can start your own business, and based off of what you do with your hands and what you do as far as the quality of work that you produce, you're basically steering the rudder of your own ship. And that is a tremendous thing. So you can go out there, grab that brass ring, and do it. Please learn a skill. It's very important. And if you don't learn a skill for anything else, let me throw something real simple at you. This pocket knife. Now, this is a pretty nondescript pocket knife, but this belonged to my grandfather. And when I rediscovered this, it was nothing more than solid rust. Completely and utterly unusable. But I managed to get the functionality of this thing back. And I did it because it was my grandfather's. It's an heirloom. Let me tell you how I did this. I took this, just a plastic tray, threw that in there, put a little bit of white vinegar in there. White vinegar actually chemically reacts with the rust, and I left it set for basically about 24 hours, and guess what? Rust was gone. Now, look how freely that thing moves. And actually, it moves freely enough that it'll do that. You would have had to taken a screwdriver or something else and pinched this and yanked on it to get the thing to move. Now, is this totally restored yet? No, it is not. I'm going to run a little bit of flitz on there and get everything polished up and looking really fine. But the thing is, this is now completely functional once again. But this was my grandfather's. And if I didn't have basic skills, if I didn't know mechanical skills and things like that, I would not have been able to have fixed this. And you know what? There is a demand for people that know how to fix things. And you never know when you might come up with some kind of a great idea that literally can become an invention and turn into something that can make a huge difference in the lives of other people. So do not give up on the idea of a trade, no matter what it is. Follow your passion. If you've always liked working with wood, work with wood. Because there are people out there that will pay good money for fine woodwork. Just like there are people that would pay, if they knew that you were out there, they would pay for you to restore something like this. There are people that would pay money if you could restore antique fishing rods that belong to somebody's dead grandfather, great-grandfather, something like that. So anyway, this is just me, Matt, talking to you, my viewers, about questions that you had on a live chat. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of encouragement. I hope this has given you some food for thought. But don't give up. Go and pursue something. Please learn to do something with these, with your hands. Because, like I said, it's an honorable trade. And I have been able to do some awesome jobs in my life. And you can take little things like that and you can actually turn it into a profitable business. And in closing, for those of you that have managed to hang with me to the end of this video, I know people that throw away lawnmowers when the blade gets dull because they don't know that you can actually sharpen the blade. They don't know that the blade comes off. So blade gets dull, they put it out on the curb. They do the same thing with gas grills. They do the same thing with hedge trimmers. They even do the same thing with snowblowers. A person can make money off of other people's lack of knowledge. Why not it be you? So anyway, I know this has been a long video. Thanks for sticking around. Keep the cards and letters coming, as they say, but thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, everybody, have a good one and be safe out there.